The morning it happened, everything felt normal. Robert Lawson had just poured his coffee, hazelnut creamer, 2 sugars. The sun filtered through the blinds of his small apartment in Hyde Park, casting warm stripes across the hardwood floor. Outside, kids laughed at the bus stop. A dog barked 2 doors down. He had a meeting in an hour, his button-down shirt was already ironed. But in less than 90 seconds, that quiet routine would be shattered forever. At exactly 6:47 a.m., Robert's front door was blown off its hinges by a SWAT unit. No knock. No warning. Just steel-toed boots, barking commands, and cold metal pressed to the back of his skull. Get on the ground. Don't move. You're under arrest for armed robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. His coffee spilled across the floor as his face hit the ground. And in that terrifying blur, handcuffs, flashing lights, screaming neighbors, Robert knew something wasn't right. He hadn't left his apartment in 2 days. The charges? Fabricated. The evidence? Faked. The motive? Buried in years of corruption. But what the cops didn't know was, they picked the wrong man. Robert wasn't just another statistic. He was a software engineer. Methodical. Calculated. And while they dragged him away, a hidden hallway camera recorded everything. The illegal entry, the excessive force, the lies. More importantly, it uploaded to the cloud in real time. That camera would lead to more than just his freedom. It would blow open a tangled web of false arrests, planted evidence, and internal cover-ups that had silenced dozens before him and nearly destroyed him. But Robert? He wouldn't be silenced. He had the receipts. And he was going to use them. Because this isn't just a story about police corruption. This is a story about what happens when the system tries to bury the wrong man alive, and he digs his way out with the truth. If you think this is just another police drama, think again. This is real. This is raw. And it goes deeper than you can imagine. What unfolds next will shake your belief in justice. Stick around to the end and don't forget to subscribe now and turn on the notification bell icon so you don't miss a single chapter of this unfolding drama. Trust me, the deeper it goes, the more you'll realize he wasn't just prepared to fight back, he was prepared to expose everything. And it all begins with a knock that never came. Leave a comment. Would you have stayed calm like Robert? Or would you have fought back right then? The coffee hadn't even cooled yet. Steam still rose from the chipped ceramic mug on the kitchen counter of apartment 3B in Hyde Park, Chicago. Robert Lawson, clean-shaven, 34, dark blue tee, calm demeanor, stood by the window, watching the first signs of life stir on the street below. Delivery vans. Joggers. The soft hum of morning. Inside, everything was in order. His desk was neatly arranged. Bills sorted. Laptop charged. Routine was his sanctuary. His life was quiet, on purpose. After losing his father to cancer and breaking off an engagement 3 years ago, peace became the only thing that mattered. But peace, he'd soon learn, is a privilege, not a guarantee. At 6:31 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Chicago PD. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen, before finally answering. Mr. Robert Lawson? The voice was flat. Robotic. Yes. Who is this? The line went dead. His brows furrowed. He stood still for a second looking at the screen. Weird, he muttered. Then, the floor shook. A split second later, the front door exploded inward, flying off its hinges and slamming into the adjacent wall. Wood splinters shot across the room like shrapnel. The crash was deafening. The comm was gone. Chicago police. Hands where we can see them. He spun, too slow. A flash of black uniforms. Flashlights. Rifles aimed center mass. He opened his mouth to speak. Down, someone barked. 2 officers tackled him before the words could come. His shoulders slammed the floor hard, his breath snatched from his chest. Hot coffee soaked his shirt as the mug shattered beside him. Wait, what is this? He gasped, face pressed to the wood. You're under arrest for armed robbery, the lead officer snarled, cinching his wrists tight behind his back. You have the right to remain. I didn't do anything. They didn't care. Outside, a growing crowd gathered on the sidewalk. Neighbors filmed through cracked blinds and phone screens. There he was, Robert Lawson, the quiet one, the one who greeted the mailman and donated laptops to the local youth center, dragged barefoot out of his own home in handcuffs. A neighbor called out from her window, "What are you doing? That man never hurt a soul." But the officers ignored her. They shoved Robert into the back of an unmarked SUV and slammed the door. Inside the car, everything was still. Muffled sirens in the distance. The sour scent of rubber gloves. His heart pounding so loudly he could barely think. This has to be a mistake. They'll figure it out. I didn't do anything. He kept repeating that to himself like a prayer. But deep down, a seed of dread was already growing. Because if the cops came in like that, without a knock, without a warrant, it meant they thought no one would question it. Or worse, that someone made sure they wouldn't. 2 days before, a robbery occurred at a Shell gas station on the south side. 2 masked men. Quick in, quick out. The clerk was shaken, not hurt. Security footage was grainy, but one blurry frame showed a man in a dark hoodie. It was enough for speculation to start online. That same night, Robert's old college friend, Marcus, texted him. "Marcus, yo, you trending." Robert, "Huh? Marcus, someone said the dude from the Shell robbery looks like you. Twitter's going wild. Careful out there." Robert scoffed. "That's stupid," he replied. But it stuck with him. Because Robert owned a hoodie like that. And he lived 15 minutes from that gas station. And he was, educated. Quiet. Exactly the kind of man no one believes until it's too late. The holding room was cold. Concrete walls. A buzzing overhead light that flickered every few seconds. Robert sat at the metal table, wrists cuffed to the chair, jaw clenched. Across from him, Detective Alan Pierce leaned back in his seat, sipping from a styrofoam cup like he was watching a movie. "We have a witness," Pierce said. "Says you ran from the station after the robbery." "I wasn't near Southside that day." Pierce slid a blurry still image across the table. "Looks like you." Robert looked at it. "It's not me." Pierce smirked. "We'll let the jury decide." "I was home," Robert said calmly. "My smart lock logs every time I enter or exit. My Nest camera has 48 hours of motion footage. Alexa records every voice command I give. I ordered Thai food at 7:04 p.m. and paid with Apple Pay. I can prove everything." Pierce's smirk faltered just slightly. "Well, if you've got nothing to hide." "I have nothing to hide," Robert interrupted. "But you do." Pierce stiffened. Robert locked eyes with him and said, "There's a camera above my front door. It uploads directly to my cloud. I know your men never knocked. And I know you didn't have a warrant." Silence. A slow beat passed. Pierce stood up and walked out without a word. Marcus sat in his apartment watching the video. Robert's cloud backup had kicked in automatically the moment the door was breached. The footage was crisp. No knock. No ID. Just weapons drawn and violence. "Jesus," Marcus whispered. He sent it to a journalist friend. Then a lawyer. Then a civil rights group. And just like that, the story started to spread. Because someone else saw that video and gasped. A woman. In tears. "My son. They did the same thing to my son." The video hit Twitter at 8:03 a.m. No caption. No commentary. Just a 53-second clip. The quality was clean. The angle, perfect. Mounted above the inside of Robert Lawson's front door, it captured everything. The door busting open. 4 armed officers rushing in. No knock. No warrant shown. Robert, hands visible, no sudden movements, tackled instantly, face first to the floor. No Miranda rights. No explanation. Just chaos, force, and an arrest that looked more like a home invasion. Within minutes, the clip was reposted. "This is how they treat black men in their own homes. He told y'all he was innocent. Watch the video." Chicago PD better pray this doesn't go viral. Oh wait, it already did. By 9:12 a.m., it had 7,000 shares. By 10:24 a.m., hashtag Justice for Robert Lawson was trending in 3 states. And by 11 a.m., someone inside the Chicago Police Department was in full damage control. Robert sat in silence. No lawyer. No update. No food. just the occasional shadow passing by the frosted window of the interrogation room. His wrists ached from the cuffs. His lip was split from the tackle. He didn't cry. Didn't scream. He just stared at the corner of the ceiling, where he imagined a camera should be, but wasn't. Typical. They record everything except what matters. Then the door opened. Detective Pierce walked in with a different energy this time. No smirk. No swagger. He had a folder in his hand. But he didn't open it. Instead, he stood still for a long time, then said flatly, "We're releasing you." Robert blinked. "Excuse me?" "No charges filed. You're free to go." No apology. No explanation. Just that. The sun was hotter now. When Robert stepped out onto the concrete steps of the 12th District Station, a small crowd had already gathered. Journalists. Activists. People holding up signs with his name on them. His name, already printed in bold black letters. Strangers who hadn't known him yesterday now chanting for his freedom. Marcus was waiting across the street. He ran to him. "Yo," he breathed, throwing his arms around Robert. "You good?" "I think so," Robert said. His voice cracked. "How did?" Marcus held up his phone. "The footage. It's out. You're everywhere, man. I sent it to Sam from Channel 5. Civil rights lawyers are already talking class action." Robert looked around, dazed. A young woman pushed through the crowd. Her eyes were puffy. She wore a black hoodie and carried a printed photo. A teenage boy, maybe 17. "He was my brother," she said. "Same precinct. Same tactics. They said he resisted. But he didn't. They erased our footage." She paused. "Thank you for fighting." Robert swallowed the lump in his throat. He didn't feel like a fighter. He felt like a man who'd nearly lost everything in a matter of hours. But now he had proof. He had a voice. And people were listening. In a nondescript office inside the station's second floor, Captain Dwight Monroe was shouting into a burner phone. "I don't care if the footage got out," he snapped. "Contain it." The pause. "No, delete everything. His record, the warrant entry, internal logs. Now." He slammed the phone down and looked at the officer standing across from him, Lieutenant Grant, the one who'd led the morning raid. "You told me this guy was soft." Grant clenched his jaw. "He was. We've used this playbook a dozen times." "Well, now he's a goddamn problem," Monroe growled. "You know how this works. If the department takes a fall, it won't be us. It'll be the lowest man on the ladder." He picked up a file. Inside were 5 other names, men arrested under similar, anonymous tip circumstances. All of them black. All of them poor. All of them silenced, except one. He tapped Robert's file. "We need to shut this down before he starts connecting dots." The front door was boarded up now. The smell of splintered wood still hung in the air. Coffee stains had dried into the floor like blood. Robert sat on the edge of his couch, scrolling through Twitter. Thousands of comments. Some supportive. "This is fake. Stop playing the victim. They probably had a reason. He's just trying to go viral." The internet, he realized, could lift you up and drown you at the same time. He dropped the phone and buried his face in his hands. That's when Marcus came in again, holding his laptop. "Bro, look at this." He flipped the screen. It showed a forum, an anonymous police whistleblower page. Someone had posted, "If anyone's digging into Lawson's case, check the files from the 15th District last spring. They buried something there. Look for Officer D. Monroe's override logs. And if you're reading this, Robert, you're not the only one." Robert stared at the laptop screen, unblinking. The anonymous message burned into his mind. "If anyone's digging into Lawson's case, check the files from the 15th District last spring. They buried something there. Look for Officer D. Monroe's override logs. And if you're reading this, Robert, you're not the only one." He read it 3 times before his hand left the trackpad. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, the sirens had stopped. The news vans were gone. Twitter had moved on to the next trending fire. But inside Robert's head, a storm was building. Because this wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't even about the charges. It was about the possibility that this had happened to others. That someone had been setting traps long before Robert ever spilled coffee that morning. That maybe someone had died from it. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his palms against his jeans. "We're not done," he whispered. The living room was cluttered, half pizza boxes, half computer screens. Marcus, a freelance cybersecurity analyst who used to moonlight for Reddit sleuths, sat cross-legged on the floor surrounded by 2 laptops and a whiteboard covered in post-its. Robert paced behind him like a caged lion. "You sure this isn't too dangerous?" Marcus asked. "Too late for that," Robert replied. Marcus nodded grimly. "All right, let's find out what's in the 15th District's closet." He pulled up a public record access portal for internal police logs. Normally clean and restricted, but Marcus had his ways. Lines of code flew across the screen as he whispered, "Come on, baby, give me something they forgot to hide." "Got it," Marcus grinned. A list of internal override logs appeared. Routine at first, adjustments to patrol schedules, vehicle assignments, locker logs. March 22, 2023, override request approved. Subject, Kareem D. Jameson. Arrested, March 20th, South Loop area. Evidence log amended post-arrest. Arresting officer T. Monroe. Robert leaned in. "Wait, amended after the arrest?" Marcus clicked deeper. It says they lost dash cam footage. Recovered backup body cam footage, but the log shows it was corrupted. Robert felt cold. "Let me guess," he said, "they had anonymous tips on that one too?" Marcus typed quickly. "Witness tip, called in from burner. No name. Location ping, near 15th District cell tower." "Same damn playbook," Marcus muttered. "They're copying and pasting this." Robert looked away for a second, fists clenched. "What happened to Kareem?" Marcus opened a browser tab and searched the name. It didn't take long. Local teen dies in police custody after disputed arrest. March 23, 2023, Chicago Tribune. 17-year-old Kareem Jameson was arrested under suspicion of attempted robbery but collapsed in his holding cell less than 48 hours later. Authorities claim it was a seizure. Family disputes this, saying Kareem had no history of seizures. No footage from the arrest was ever released. Robert sat down slowly. 17. He wiped his face. They killed him. A dim cell. One flickering light. The sound of coughing echoing from the next room. Kareem Jameson sat huddled against the wall, holding his stomach. He was scared, but he didn't cry. He just kept whispering his mom's number to himself. 312-543-0171. Every hour, someone screamed in the hall. Once, a door slammed so hard it shook dust from the ceiling. And then, he stopped responding. No one came. The guard logged, "Inmate sleeping." By the time they checked again, Kareem was cold. "They buried this," Robert said, voice low and steady. "They buried him." "Looks like Officer Monroe has his hands on more than just your case," Marcus replied. He pulled up 5 more override logs tied to Monroe over the past 2 years. All with similar patterns. Altered logs, delayed footage, mysterious tips. "But here's the worst part," Marcus added. "None of the victims have lawyers who fought back. They were poor. No connections. No evidence." Robert nodded. "They didn't expect me to survive the system." "Nope. And they sure as hell didn't expect a guy like me," Marcus smirked. Robert's phone rang. A known number. Finn. He answered. "Hello." A deep, calm voice replied, "Mr. Lawson, we've seen the footage. We're with a private civil rights group. We'd like to help, if you're willing to go public." Robert froze. "Go public how?" "A press conference. Testimony. National exposure. But it's dangerous. You'll be under a microscope. They'll try to discredit you. Maybe worse." Robert glanced at the list of names on Marcus's laptop. "No offense," he said, "but I think the danger already started." He paused. "Let's talk." Captain Monroe stared at his email. The footage. The tweets. The articles. His phone vibrated again. He picked up. "Control this," barked a voice on the other end. "You're sloppy. You left a trail." "I'm handling it." "No, you're reacting. Find Lawson. Shut him up. Legally or not. Monroe's jaw tightened. He stood, opened his file drawer, and pulled out a manila folder labeled Internal Affairs, Confidential. Inside were printouts of arrest logs, including his own override codes. If someone got their hands on this, that can't happen. He made a call. Lieutenant Grant. Find Lawson. And make sure that footage doesn't go any further. Do what you have to do. Robert stood in front of his bathroom mirror. His split lip had started to close. The bruise near his eye was fading, but the fire inside him had only grown. He thought of Kareem. Of Kareem's sister. Of the families who never got closure. Who were told to move on. Who buried sons without answers. And he thought of himself. Of how close he came to becoming just another name, another folder buried in some corrupt cop's drawer. He looked himself dead in the eye. Not this time. The paranoia didn't start with the black SUV. It started with the feeling, that creeping sense that someone was standing just outside his vision. That heaviness in his chest when he opened his laptop. That split-second delay before a phone call connected, like someone was listening first. And then, the black SUV showed up. Parked across from Robert Lawson's apartment. Same vehicle. Same tinted windows. 2 days in a row. Different license plate each time. Robert sat on his living room couch, staring at his TV. But he wasn't watching. He was listening. To silence. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Marcus, bro. Did you notice anything weird with your Wi-Fi? Robert blinked. What do you mean? Marcus, someone pinged your router last night. External IP address traced back to, get this, a secured GovNet block. Either someone made it look like that, or someone official is watching you. Robert rubbed his temples. Great. And there's more, Marcus continued. That footage from your hallway cam? It's gone from your cloud. Robert sat up. What? Deleted at 3:12 a.m. Someone accessed your account using a VPN and wiped it. The backup folder too. I can't recover it. He went cold. But don't worry, I made a local copy, Marcus said quickly. Offline. Hard drive. No cloud. No trace. Robert exhaled. Jesus. You scared me. Yeah, well, someone else is trying to do worse. He walked to the corner store. Just 5 blocks from his building. Normally a peaceful walk. Today the air felt different. Heavy. Stale. Like something was watching him from the shadows. At the corner he saw him. A man in a dark hoodie and jeans, leaning against a payphone. Face down. But when Robert passed, the man tilted his head slightly, too slowly, like he was memorizing his face. Robert kept walking. Outside the store, he checked the reflection in the glass door. The man was following. Robert didn't browse. He grabbed water and a granola bar. Paid cash. At the register, the clerk, an older woman named Mrs. Delaney, gave him a nervous glance. You all right, baby? She asked, lowering her voice. Robert nodded. You look hunted. He almost laughed. But it wasn't funny. He whispered, Can I leave through the back? She hesitated, then nodded toward the swinging stockroom door. You didn't see me, he said. Mrs. Delaney only gave a slight nod. Robert crept behind trash bins, heart racing. He peeked back toward the street. The man in the hoodie stood just outside the store's front door, scanning the inside. Looking for him. Robert ducked lower, dialing Marcus. Someone's following me, he said. Marcus cursed. Get to my place. You're not staying alone tonight. Robert didn't argue. The blinds were shut. Laptops were closed. A bag of gear sat on the floor. USB drives, burner phones, external batteries, portable hotspot. Robert stared at the bag. You've been prepping for this, he said. Marcus gave a grim chuckle. You don't hang around hacker forums without expecting some kind of blowback. But this is bigger. He turned to Robert. That anonymous tip from Chapter 3? I traced the IP. It was masked, yeah, but there's a bounce signal that passed through a retired government network node. Not random. Robert raised a brow. Meaning, this might go higher than we thought. Lieutenant Grant stood in a private briefing room with 3 other officers. The presentation was clear: a new, enhanced discretion protocol for street-level units. No paperwork, Monroe had said. If a name shows up on that list, we act. We don't ask who put them there. The list was printed on red paper. No headers. No signatures. Just names. Grant had only seen it once. But one name stuck with him: Robert Lawson. He remembered because Robert's name wasn't added until 2 weeks ago. And no one knew why. Robert and Marcus sat across from a civil rights lawyer named Gina Mercado. Late 30s, sharp suit, braided hair, voice like a scalpel. You go public and they'll try to tear your life apart, she said. They'll look for old parking tickets, X's, tweets, anything. Robert said nothing. You sure you want this? She asked. I don't want it, Robert said. But Kareem didn't have a choice. I do. Gina nodded. All right. Then we build the case: hard drives, backup footage, timeline, inconsistencies in their reports, anything Monroe's name touches. And we go loud. Back at Marcus's apartment, the news dropped. Breaking: man wrongfully arrested in violent raid speaks out, reveals patterns of police abuse tied to same officer. Robert's face was on every screen. Local. National. Twitter was flooded. This is no accident. He's exposing the truth. CPD has a rot problem. This is the match. That night, his phone didn't stop ringing. But not all the calls were friendly. At 9:42 p.m., he received a voicemail. A robotic voice: stop talking, or we'll stop you. Robert couldn't sleep. He sat on the floor, laptop open, headphones on. He replayed the hallway footage. Watched the door explode open. Boom. Frame by frame, he focused on one officer. Wide shoulders. Tattoo on the wrist. The same tattoo he saw earlier in the alley, on the man who had followed him. They're not just watching, he muttered. They're blending in. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his burner phone. He called Gina. Someone's on me. There was a knock at the door. 3 soft raps. Not a battering ram this time, just a knock. But it made Robert's blood run cold. He was crouched behind Marcus's couch, phone in one hand, pepper spray in the other. The blinds were closed. The door was bolted. Another knock. Louder. Marcus crept up, peeking through the peephole. It's a woman, he whispered, wearing a press badge. Chicago Dispatch. Robert's eyebrows pinched. A journalist? Apparently. The pause. Then Robert nodded. Marcus opened the door cautiously, chains still latched. The woman leaned forward and said, "Tell Robert Lawson I have something he's going to want to see. And I'm not staying long." Her name was Isabel Grant. Mid-30s, biracial, tough edge, sharp eyes. A reporter with a reputation for 2 things: digging up what others buried and burning bridges to publish it. "I'm risking my job just being here," she said. "And possibly more." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a slim yellow envelope. This came anonymously. Sent to the Dispatch newsroom 2 days ago. I've seen enough leaks to know when something's real. Robert opened the envelope with cautious fingers. Inside were printed screenshots of internal CPD documents. Evidence logs. Case file tags. All stamped with the name of the same officer, Lieutenant D. Monroe. And Robert's own name was listed 3 times. Each time beside an arrest entry that had never legally happened. "What is this?" he asked. "Your file," Isabel said. "The version that's not in the public system. You were flagged 2 months before your arrest. Marked as a person of interest in a gang investigation that doesn't exist. There's no case number. No actual gang. Just your name." Robert's heart pounded. They were planning this for months. "No," she said. "They were repeating it. You're just the first one who had enough digital evidence to break the pattern." In a soundproof office on the 3rd floor of CPD's 15th District headquarters, Lieutenant Monroe stood at a secure terminal. He scrolled through a list titled, Pre-Crime Behavioral Indicators Initiative, Phase 2. Authorized access only, internal. It was supposed to be experimental. Off the books. A fusion of outdated, predictive policing models and AI surveillance datasets gathered without warrants. The algorithm marked individuals who fit behavioral patterns that correlated with future crimes, based on location, browsing history, social connections, facial recognition, and arrest proximity. It was garbage science. But it had one convenient feature. It automatically flagged young black men with clean records but proximity to crime zones. And once they were on the list, they were fair game. They're using predictive profiling, Isabel said, confirming Robert's worst fear. And they're hiding it behind false tips and bogus arrest justifications. They plant something, wait for you to push back, then disappear the evidence. Robert stared at the documents in his hand. This is a program. A shadow one, she added. Off the books, hush hush. But someone inside CPD is leaking. You've got a mole. Marcus chimed in. Or a whistleblower. Isabel handed Robert a USB drive. There's a video on this. Watch it. Alone. The video was grainy. Shot vertically, handheld, possibly from a phone hidden under a desk. The audio crackled. But the voice was clear. My name is Officer Thomas Vega. Badge number 59782. This is a statement for the record. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or in hiding. I've been part of Lieutenant Monroe's task force for over a year. And what we're doing isn't policing, it's hunting. They pick names off a list. People who've done nothing. They arrest, frame, or disappear them. They manipulate body cam footage. They write reports before anything happens. They even altered autopsy results. They told us it was about prevention. But it's not. It's about control. Race-based control. I'm out. I'm done. And if this gets leaked, they'll come for anyone connected to it, including you, Robert. The screen went black. Robert returned home for the first time since the arrest. His front door had been repaired but not replaced. There was still a crack near the handle. Still blood on the frame, faded but visible. He stepped inside and stood still. Everything looked the same, but it felt different. He moved slowly, scanning every corner, until he saw it. His desk drawer was open. His files ruffled. The hard drive he had hidden? Gone. His heart dropped. Someone had broken in again. He turned to leave, and then saw it. Scrawled in red ink on the mirror above his kitchen sink. We warned you. Robert sat across from Gina Mercado, clutching the USB in one hand and the stolen folder copies in the other. We've got enough for federal interest now, she said. Whistleblower testimony, predictive targeting program, illegal raids. This isn't just a civil case anymore. This is constitutional. She looked him dead in the eye. But they know that too. They're not going to wait for subpoenas. Robert nodded. They already came to my place. Left a message. Gina's voice sharpened. Then we go public. Not just viral. National. We file the suit with media coverage. Press conference. You speak. Robert hesitated. I'm not a hero, he whispered. I'm a guy who almost got killed because I bought the wrong hoodie and lived in the wrong zip code. Gina smiled faintly. Exactly. That's why they're afraid of you. You're not supposed to fight back. As Robert and Marcus drove to the news station for the planned interview, Robert's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. He didn't answer. But this time, it left a voicemail. He pressed play over the car's Bluetooth. A man's voice, low and gravelly. We don't miss twice, Lawson. We're watching the station. You speak, you disappear. Marcus's hands gripped the wheel tighter. Robert stared out the window. I'm still going, he said. Marcus didn't say anything. He just nodded. The studio lights were too bright. Robert sat in the makeup chair at W7 News, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Sweat formed at the back of his neck, and his chest rose and felt like he'd just run a mile. Not from fear, but from awareness. The cameras weren't the only things watching him. He kept his eyes fixed on the monitor ahead as a stylist dabbed foundation under his eyes to cover the faint bruise that still lingered. A production assistant clipped a mic to his collar and whispered something he didn't catch. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the voicemail. We don't miss twice, Lawson. We're watching the station. You speak, you disappear. But here he was anyway. Anchorwoman Valerie Knox sat across from him on the set. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were sharp, the kind of sharp that could slice through any PR-crafted statement. She adjusted her notepad and leaned slightly forward. "We're live in 3, 2." The red light blinked on. Tonight on WCH7, an exclusive, a Chicago man who claims he was falsely arrested, targeted by police, and is now at the center of a possible citywide cover-up. With me is Robert Lawson. Mr. Lawson, thank you for being here. Robert looked into the lens and said the one thing he'd promised himself he would. They came into my home without warning. No warrant. No knock. They threw me on the ground, lied about what I did, and tried to erase the footage. But they didn't know I had a backup. Robert explained the surveillance camera, the false tip, the erased logs, the stolen hard drive, the anonymous message from Officer Vega. Valerie's eyes widened as he detailed the algorithm, the pre-crime database, and the list of names marked without due process. "This is bigger than me," Robert said, voice steady. "This is a machine. It's been operating under your noses for years. And now it's out in the open." Valerie turned to the camera. "We reached out to the Chicago Police Department for comment. They've denied any wrongdoing and declined our request for an interview. The mayor's office, however, says they are opening an internal investigation." "What do you want now?" she asked him gently. Robert looked dead into the camera. "I want every single name on that list to be accounted for. I want the families to know. I want the people who built this to face trial. And I want the public to see this wasn't a mistake, it was a strategy." Applause filled the air as Robert stepped off set. Staff members nodded at him respectfully. A producer clapped him on the back. "You just shook the tree," someone said. Robert gave a weak smile. He wasn't thinking about applause. He was thinking about the sniper scope he imagined had been trained on him the whole time. He turned to Marcus, who waited with Gina in the hallway. "Let's go," Robert said. "We don't stay longer than we need to." The concrete garage beneath the studio was dim. Their car, a black Honda Civic, sat near the exit. Robert's pulse quickened as they approached. Something felt off. Too quiet. Marcus reached the driver's door first. And that's when Robert saw it. A blinking red dot on the undercarriage. Right behind the rear tire. "Wait!" Robert screamed. Marcus froze mid-step. Gina's eyes widened. Robert yanked Marcus back by the collar and they both hit the floor as a loud pop shook the garage. More of a controlled detonation than a full-blown explosion, but enough to rock the vehicle. Smoke poured from beneath the car. A warning. Captain Monroe slammed a fist against a file cabinet. "You told me we'd already cleared the damn car." The man across from him, an older, suited figure with no badge and no name, didn't flinch. "I told you to send a message," the man said. "Not to kill him. Not yet. Lawson is useful alive. For now." Monroe sneered. "He just exposed everything." "No, he exposed what we wanted him to. Now he thinks he's winning. He's doing our cleanup for us." Monroe's fists clenched. "Let him keep talking," the man added. "We'll decide when the story ends." Robert sat in the corner of a hotel room that Marcus booked under a fake name. The shades were drawn. Lights off. Just the blue glow of Marcus's laptop screen. "We traced the tracking beacon under the car," Marcus said. "Military grade. Not PD tech. This was placed by someone with serious access." Robert didn't speak. He was thinking of the USB drive Isabel had given him. The video of Officer Vega. He pulled it from his pocket and handed it to Marcus. "We need to trace him, Vega. We need to find him before they do." Gina entered the room, her phone pressed to her ear. She hung up. "We might not need to," she said. "I just got a call from a federal contact. Someone in DC saw the broadcast. And they're interested." Robert's eyes widened. "The FBI?" "No. Bigger." A man in a dark hoodie sat inside a storage unit lined with blankets and soundproof foam. A battery pack charged his phone. A pile of protein bars sat beside his bedroll. He watched Robert's interview on a cracked tablet. And whispered, "You did it, man. You made them blink." Then he picked up a burner phone and dialed. Time to give him the rest. Marcus's laptop pinged. A message appeared. No sender. No subject. Just a file. Project Haven, internal clearance only. Do not duplicate. Inside were dozens of documents, each containing lists. Arrested. Deceased. Flagged. Terminated. And one final folder labeled. Redline subjects. Eliminate if exposed. Robert clicked it. There were 4 names. His was the second. The laptop screen glowed in the dark. Robert stared at the folder labeled Redline subjects as if the words alone could burn him. The file contained 4 names. No context. No charges. Just 4 individuals, each marked with a red tag beside their profile photo. Robert Lawson, status, active/priority. Vega, Thomas, status, unknown/assumed compromised. Diana Brooks, status, deceased. Tone Ellis, status, terminated, lethal. He leaned back slowly, trying to steady his breathing. His hands trembled slightly. What the hell is this? He whispered. Gina stepped forward. It's not a hit list, it's worse. Marcus glanced up from his own screen. These people were all connected to exposure attempts. Whistleblowers, witnesses, or people who got too close. Robert's heart pounded. So that means... You're not just a threat, Gina said. You're now considered uncontrollable. Marcus pulled up the 3rd name, Diana Brooks, a civil liberties researcher at a think tank in Boston. She died in a car crash 8 months ago, Marcus said. The report called it a mechanical failure, brake line rupture. Robert frowned. But... Marcus zoomed in on a photo from the scene. No skid marks. No swerving. Just a clean trajectory into a retaining wall. Robert's voice lowered. Like she didn't even try to stop. Or couldn't. He opened the 4th profile, Tyrone Ellis. Former data contractor for a tech firm working with predictive policing software. Whistleblower. Died in a house fire 2 weeks after filing a formal complaint with the DOJ, Marcus said. His report never made it to the system. Robert stood, pacing. They're killing people. Silently. Professionally. And efficiently, Gina added. Until now. A small tech startup in San Jose. Tyrone Ellis walked into his supervisor's office, holding a flash drive. I'm not letting this slide, he said. This code is racial profiling dressed up as AI. It doesn't predict crime. It targets communities. His supervisor locked the door. Do you have any idea who we're working for? Tyrone didn't back down. I don't care who signs the checks. What we're doing is illegal. The supervisor said nothing. But the next day, Tyrone was terminated for security violations. He never got the chance to speak again. Robert stood in the mirror, eyes sunken, expression hard. He splashed cold water on his face. Every breath felt heavier now, every step a little louder in his ears. They don't miss twice. That voicemail echoed again and again. But he hadn't been taken out yet. And that meant something. Maybe it meant they were nervous. Maybe it meant he still had leverage. He picked up his phone and sent a message to Isabel Grant, the reporter who first brought him the folder. We need to talk. In person. Bring every file you have. Tonight. Then he turned to Marcus. You said Vega's still out there. Marcus nodded. Yeah. He's hiding. But he's watching. Robert's voice dropped. Let's make him come to us. Marcus created a secure dark web forum thread titled Lawson Leak, Part 2, Redline Files Go Public at Midnight. He embedded Vega's old whistleblower video beneath it. Within 15 minutes, the thread had over 2,000 anonymous viewers. Then a message popped up in the comments. You're poking a dragon with a sharp stick. V59782. Marcus's eyes widened. That's Vega. Robert replied under an alias. Then come help us slay it. Coordinates in DM. 2 hours. You know we're not bluffing. They didn't know if he'd show. But they had to try. Robert stood beneath the rusted overhang of the old Pullman station. The place hadn't seen a real train in years. Graffiti covered the walls. Wind whistled through broken windows. Marcus sat in the car nearby, laptop on standby. Gina waited at a distance with a burner phone, ready to call if anything went wrong. Then, from the shadows, a man approached. Hooded. Careful. No sudden movements. He stopped 5 feet from Robert. You really don't know what you're stepping into, he said quietly. Robert stepped forward. I do now. And I need you. The man pulled down his hood. Thomas Vega. Gaunt. Eyes red from fatigue. You put a target on my back, he said. Robert nodded. You already had one. I just made it visible. Vega sighed. They've been running this operation for almost 7 years. Started under a counter-violence grant. Expanded after they partnered with private tech firms. The algorithm was just the bait. The real program is Project Haven. Robert furrowed his brow. Why that name? Because it's a lie. It's supposed to protect communities. But what it really does is remove undesirables, quietly, legally, under the guise of preemptive crime prevention. Undesirables? Robert asked. Vega's voice cracked. People like you. Like me. Black, brown, poor, loud, quiet. It didn't matter. If you didn't fit the profile they wanted to sell to donors and voters, you were flagged. Back at the safe house, Vega handed over a small hard drive. This has everything, he said. Internal memos, budget trails, the name of the consulting firm that wrote the first version of the Red Line Protocol. It connects the dots between CPD, federal grants, and 3 companies headquartered in D.C., Utah, and Texas. Gina's eyes widened as she scrolled. This is enough to bring half the department into court. Vega shook his head. They won't go down without a fight. Robert's phone buzzed again. Unknown sender. A photo. It showed his mother leaving a grocery store in Bronzeville. Then another photo, his niece, getting into a school bus. Back off. This ends now. Or they do. Robert froze. Marcus saw the look on his face. What? They're threatening my family. Gina whispered, they're tightening the net. But Robert looked up slowly, something steely in his eyes now. No, he said. They just gave me all the reason I need to burn this whole thing to the ground. The studio lights weren't on this time. This wasn't a controlled broadcast or sit-down interview. This was live-streamed. Guerrilla style. Raw and unfiltered. Robert Lawson sat in front of a plain black curtain in a hotel conference room converted into a makeshift war room. No makeup. No suit. No production crew. Just a camera. A laptop. And the truth. Tonight, he began, I'm not just talking to Chicago. He looked directly into the lens. I'm talking to every city that's ever swept its corruption under a badge. Every community that's been hunted in the name of protection. Every family who lost someone and was told it was just procedure. Behind him, a large monitor displayed the words. #Operation Haven. The exposure begins. Robert continued. For the last 7 years, a covert operation, funded by federal grants and driven by private contractors, has been identifying and targeting innocent civilians based on manipulated behavioral data. The program was called Haven. But make no mistake, it was a trap. He clicked a remote. The screen changed. Internal emails. Budget memos. Algorithm drafts. Red line profiles. These documents, Robert said, were leaked by an insider. They prove that law enforcement agencies, aided by tech firms, used a racially biased algorithm to create pre-crime watch lists, and then went one step further, arresting, silencing, and in some cases, eliminating the names on those lists. Within 20 minutes, the live stream had over 80,000 viewers. A reporter from The Intercept tweeted, "What Robert Lawson is exposing right now could bring down an entire department, and maybe more." Activists retweeted. Lawyers clipped segments. The footage spread like wildfire. In the comments, "We stand with you. Project Haven equals modern CO. Chicago won't sleep tonight. Tag your reps. This needs hearings." She stepped into the hallway with Vega and Marcus while Robert continued on camera. It was Isabel Grant. "I'm in D.C., Isabel said, voice rushed. "I found something." "What is it?" Gina asked. "There's a congressional oversight document from 2 years ago, never released to the public. It links Haven funding to a Homeland Security initiative post-Charlottesville. It was supposed to track extremism, but it was retooled. Quietly. And the profiles turned inward. Gina's jaw clenched. They took a counterterrorism tool, she whispered, and used it on their own citizens. Back inside, Robert was halfway through exposing the redline profiles when the stream glitched. The screen flashed. Marcus. Robert called. Marcus checked the laptop. We just got pinged by a federal server. They're trying to cut the stream. I thought we routed through 6 proxies? They're burning through them like tissue. Someone powerful doesn't want this seen. Robert stood. Reconnect. Now. Gina burst back into the room. We need to move. Isabel confirmed they'll try to issue a federal injunction within the hour. And we'll be gone by then, Robert said. He looked at Vega. Drop it all. Marcus uploaded the entire hard drive to 5 secure public servers. ProjectHavenLeaked.org, Liberty Watch, Journalists Without Borders, Copwatch Data Vault, Signal Files. Each hosted a mirrored archive. Whistleblower videos, CPD redline subject lists, budget trails, private tech firm contracts, footage of illegal arrests. It couldn't be stopped now. Even if Robert disappeared, the truth wouldn't. Live from Washington, D.C., Isabel Grant stood on the steps of the Capitol. This evening, she said to cameras, newly leaked documents have surfaced detailing a program known as Operation Haven, an AI-assisted surveillance initiative originally designed to track potential threats, but allegedly repurposed to target black and brown citizens in U.S. cities. She held up a printed memo. And we've just confirmed this memo originated from within the Department of Homeland Security. Behind her, murmurs swelled. Politicians were watching. The phones in their offices rang nonstop. Just as Robert leaned back, exhaling from the intensity of the night, Marcus's phone lit up. Private number. He put it on speaker. A distorted voice came through. Lawson should have listened. The line dropped. Then Gina's phone rang. The message appeared. We told you this ends tonight. Attached was a photo. Robert's niece, Kayla, at her dance class. Taken minutes ago. Everyone went still. Robert's throat tightened. That was tonight's class. I didn't tell anyone where she was. Vega stepped forward. They're watching everything. We have to go now, Marcus said. Split up. And someone has to get to Kayla. Robert was already grabbing his coat. Robert sped through red lights in Gina's car. His niece's dance studio was on 43rd and Langley, small, with only one security camera facing the street. When he arrived, the building was already closed. Empty. His heart pounded as he banged on the glass. Nothing. Then a flicker, movement inside. A woman unlocked the door. Miss Janine, Kayla's dance teacher. She's okay, she said quickly. She's in the back with the janitor. Some guy showed up asking weird questions. Said he was her uncle. Robert's eyes widened. He sprinted down the hallway, turned the corner, and stopped. A man stood at the end of the hall, holding Kayla's hand. When he saw Robert, he froze. Robert's fists clenched. Let her go. The man smiled calmly, pulled out a badge and said, She's safe. We were making sure no one else got to her first. Robert didn't believe a word of it. But Kayla ran to him, unharmed. The man nodded once. Next time, he said, we won't ask questions first. Then he vanished down the exit stairs. Back at the hotel, Robert held Kayla in his arms. She was safe. But barely. They know they've lost control, Vega said. That's why they're getting sloppy. Gina scrolled through her phone. Too late. The House Judiciary Committee is already demanding a hearing. The DOJ has to respond. Robert nodded, exhausted. It's happening. Vega leaned forward. But you're not safe yet. And neither is your family. Robert looked up. Then I guess we finish what we started. The Capitol Rotunda was colder than Robert expected. The marble echoed with every step as he walked through the halls flanked by federal marshals. His palms were sweaty, heart-heavy, but his spine never felt straighter. A congressional hearing wasn't the original plan. None of this was. He was supposed to be at work. Quiet. Coding spreadsheets. living his life under the radar. But now the radar had found him, and instead of running, he'd stepped into the storm. The hearing room buzzed with press, legal observers, and government officials. At the center of it all sat a row of lawmakers, half skeptical, half electrified. On the nameplate in front of the witness seat, Robert Lawson, civilian witness/whistleblower. Next to him sat Gina, expression steel cold. Robert's voice was low. "Once I speak, there's no going back." "You already passed that point," she replied. He nodded. Then a congressional aide whispered, "We're about to begin." Representative Lorna Hayes, a congresswoman from California with a fierce civil rights record, opened the session. Today's hearing investigates the program known as Operation Haven and the alleged systemic abuse of predictive policing tools against American citizens, particularly citizens of color. She turned to Robert. "Mr. Lawson, you may proceed." Robert took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "My name is Robert Lawson. I was arrested in my home by armed officers with no warrant, no knock, and no legal justification. I was labeled a suspect based on data I never consented to share and algorithms I never agreed to be judged by. But I wasn't the first. And I might not be the last." He described the raid. The footage. The predictive algorithm. The Project Haven documents. The deaths of Kareem Jamison, Diana Brooks, Tyrone Ellis. Some lawmakers shifted uncomfortably. Others scribbled furiously. But it was the silence in the room that said the most. Just as Robert prepared to read Vega's final statement, his whistleblower declaration naming the tech firms involved, a man burst into the hearing room, panting. He whispered urgently into the ear of a committee aide. The aide turned pale, then approached Hayes at the dais. "Madam Chair," the aide whispered, "we need to pause. There's been a security issue." Hayes furrowed her brow, picked up a file, and scanned its contents. Her expression changed. She looked up and said into the microphone, "We're calling a brief recess. Mr. Lawson, remain seated." Robert's eyes narrowed. He turned to Gina. "What the hell is going on?" She shook her head. Then her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You trusted the wrong person." Vega flipped. "Check the folder." Gina immediately opened her encrypted file drive, clicked into Vega's folder, and gasped. The final subfolder, newly timestamped just 8 minutes ago, had been labeled Operation Haven, Final Release, by Vega. But inside? Nothing. The documents were corrupted, empty, wiped from the main servers. All backups deleted. And then a new file appeared, just one. A video file titled Run Profile Summary, flagged. Marcus, watching from a remote site, called immediately. "Don't open it," he yelled over the phone. "It's a setup. Vegas sold you out. That file, it's a trap." But it was too late. The screen flickered and played a short clip, a spliced-together, heavily edited montage of Robert's arrest, carefully trimmed to remove all officer aggression and reframe his resistance as violent and erratic. Then it cut to a falsified audio log. Robert Lawson is escalating. Suspected of retaliation planning. Red line priority. Flag for detainment. Marcus shouted through the phone. "This file was uploaded to CPD's server. They're trying to make you look like a domestic threat. Again." Outside the hearing room, Capitol Police burst through the doors. "Lock it down," one officer ordered. "We've received an internal alert. Target Lawson flagged by DHS Watch." Robert stood up. "I'm the target?" "They're not arresting you," Gina said. "They're covering their ass. They're reclassifying you before the public finishes listening." "They're trying to make me disappear," Robert whispered. Officers surrounded him. Gina held up her badge. "You touch him, I sue all of you by lunch. He's a federal witness." Still, the hearing was adjourned. The cameras shut off. And just like that, the spotlight dimmed. They fled in a black SUV under federal witness protection. Marcus coordinated with an off-site data team to restore what Vega had erased. Gina was furious. "He played us." Robert shook his head. "No. He was compromised. Or he cut a deal." Vega had vanished. Phones dead. Accounts deleted. And now Robert was back where he started, on the run, hunted by a system designed to erase the whistleblower before the story is finished. Only this time, the public had seen it start. And now, they wanted answers. She was back in Chicago, live on national TV. We're receiving reports that federal agents attempted to detain Robert Lawson, the whistleblower behind the Operation Haven leaks. Sources close to the case claim that tampered evidence may have been introduced just moments before his testimony. She held up a tablet. But here's what they didn't expect. Isabel played a recovered backup of Vega's original final statement, uploaded by Marcus from an offline hard drive. In it, Vega's voice trembled. I don't know how long I have. They found me. But I need to say this. Lawson is telling the truth. And if I disappear after this, don't let them call it an accident. The feed cut back to Isabel, eyes hard. If Robert Lawson disappears, America better be ready to burn for answers. Robert stared out the window of the safe house they just arrived at. All around him, new identities, burner phones, satellite links, encrypted drives. But none of it made him feel safe. Because the truth had just gotten louder than ever. He turned to Gina. They came this close to flipping the story. But they failed, she said. Robert looked down at a folder on the table. A printed copy of every redline name still flagged across the country. There were over 2,000. I won't stop, he said. Not until they all walk free. Gina nodded. Then let's give them their freedom. It was raining when Robert returned to the Capitol. Not a hard storm, but steady, like the sky was washing off everything that had come before. The courtyard was lined with protesters. Journalists stood behind barricades. Activists chanted names, waved signs, held photos of victims. Kareem Jameson, Diana Brooks, Tyrone Ellis. Robert stepped out of the black SUV in a gray suit, no tie. His face was bruised, but his eyes were clear. Back again? A marshal asked. Robert nodded. One more time. The room looked different now. Less guarded. Less hostile. Operation Haven had become a national scandal. Since the leaks, 4 departments had opened internal investigations, and 2 senators had called for a federal ban on predictive policing software. But none of that mattered if the final testimony fell flat. Robert walked slowly to the stand. He sat, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the room, and then he began. The first time they arrested me, they didn't ask who I was. They didn't care. I was just a name on a screen. A number tagged by a program that said I was dangerous, not because of anything I did, but because of what I might do. They said I looked like a suspect. They planted evidence. They erased footage. But the worst thing they tried to do was erase me. And if I hadn't had a camera, if I hadn't had a friend who knew how to trace data, if I hadn't had people brave enough to believe me, I'd be just another headline with no answers. He paused, then scanned the committee. I'm here to ask for more than reform. I'm asking for reckoning. Shut down every version of this program. Investigate every officer who used it. And compensate every family destroyed by it. Because this system doesn't need another update. It needs a funeral. Silence followed. Then applause. First from the back. Then the entire room stood. Later that day, the Attorney General announced a formal federal investigation into Operation Haven, calling it a systemic abuse of technology and power. CPD suspended Lieutenant Monroe. 3 tech executives were subpoenaed. The red line list was publicly released. But Robert wasn't finished. He went on national TV that afternoon and read aloud all 2,000 names from the red line database. It took hours. His voice cracked. He cried at some names. Smiled at others. He ended with Kareem Jameson. 17 years old, Robert said. Flagged. Arrested. Dead in a holding cell. And they called it normal procedure. He looked into the camera one last time. Not anymore. Robert published a public letter that night, addressed to his late father. Dad, I remember you told me the system wasn't built to protect people like us, but that we still had to survive it. I didn't just survive it. I tore it open. For you. For me. For all of us. I hope you're watching. Just as Robert was preparing to fly back home, Marcus burst into the hotel room. They found Vega. Robert stood. Alive. No. Worse. Marcus handed him a flash drive. It was buried in his locker. Marked in case they erase me. Inside the drive? A list of new redline targets. A fresh batch of flag names from different states. The program hadn't been shut down. It had just been moved. Robert sat at his desk, once again facing a camera. This time not for the courts. Not for the government. But for the people. I thought this was the end of the story. But I was wrong. Haven was just one piece. There are more names. More systems. More shadows. But now we know where to look. He leaned closer to the lens. If you're watching this and you think this can't happen to you, it already has. You just haven't seen it yet. So don't let this be just a story. Let it be a movement. I'm Robert Lawson. And I'm not done. 6 months later, Robert launches the Lawson Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to investigating AI abuse in law enforcement. Congress passes the Civic Algorithms Act, mandating transparency in predictive policing models. A Netflix documentary based on his story reaches 30 million views. A bronze mural of Kareem Jamison is unveiled in South Side Chicago with the words, "Don't forget us." And Robert? He keeps telling the stories. Now it's your turn. What would you have done in Robert's place? Do you think predictive policing should be banned or regulated? Have you ever experienced a moment where you were wrongly judged by a system that didn't know you? Tell your truth in the comments. Let's talk. If this story gripped you, shook you, or opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe to the channel for more true, raw, powerful stories that matter. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning.